right, today we're going to talk about classical Greece. There are 3 time periods for Greece that we talked about in our intro: archaic, classical, and Hellenistic. And this will answer your classical Greece notes. So we are going to talk about the time period where Greece is broken up into independent city-states. Sparta and Athens are the 2 most famous of those city-states. Persia is Greece's #1 enemy, and Greece is going to have a civil war that is known as the Peloponnesian War. So this is really the 4 things that we are covering and talking about with this information. As I'm going through, please answer these questions, these 15 questions that go along with this information. You're really going to need this video to be able to answer all of the questions. All right, so here is a map zooming in on the Aegean Sea, where you see Greece located over here with our different city-states. Like here's Athens right here, here's Sparta right here, and the Aegean Sea that separates it from this, which is modern-day Turkey. But please understand, in this time period, this is the extent of the western end of the Persian Empire. So Persia, obviously being this close to Greece, consistently was an enemy with them, and they wanted to control not only the land that you see right here that is purple, but also come and control all of the Greek land across the Aegean Sea. To give you an idea too, over here on a world map, here's you right there. You're that blue dot. Greece, modern day, is like right here. The Persian Empire was literally like this. It was huge, massive. Isn't that crazy? Like the Persian Empire was the largest empire in the world. It was huge. But what we're talking about, where they're fighting the Greeks, is only right here in this little general area. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a geography idea of where we're talking about. All right, so let's kick this thing off. What happens? Well, Athens is known for having a fabulous navy, and a navy is an army that's on water. And they helped the Ionian cities revolt against the Persians. And if you look back at this map, here's Ionia. This is what we're talking about, this purple area revolting against Persia, trying to overtake them. Darius was the Persian ruler at the time, and he really, really wanted revenge against Athens because Athens was helping Ionia kick the Persians out from trying to invade and take them over. And there's a great, great, great story that every night when Darius was being served dinner, the servant who laid dinner in front of him said, "Sire, remember the Athenians," just to keep him angry and ticked off and want to go get revenge. So he gets his revenge, and he gets his revenge, or tries to get his revenge, at the Battle of Marathon. This is in the First Persian War. Persia is going to come and attack Greece. Now, if you were a betting person, who would you put your money on? A little itty bitty dot of a city-state, or the empire that's this big? Well, if I was a betting woman, I would put my money on Persia. But shockingly, Athens wins this war, this battle. And if you ever go to the Greek Fest in Charlotte, which obviously was canceled for COVID this year, but it's always around September, like 6th, 7th, 8th, or 9th, 10th, 11th, depending on where the weekend falls. It's the best food you'll ever eat. You can look it up. Just type in Greek Fest into Google for Charlotte and see what pops up. But they always have the same lecture every year on the Battle of Marathon, because it's like one of the proudest things in Greek history that little itty bitty Athens beat the massive Persian Empire. So the Athenians were so happy that they beat the Persians. They sent a messenger to run to the city of Athens from the port city of Marathon to tell everyone inside the walls of Athens that they won. So the guy who does this is a guy named Phidippides, and Phidippides takes off and he runs and he runs and he runs and he runs. He runs exactly 26 miles, because Marathon is 26 miles from Athens. And he gets inside the city walls and he goes, "Victory! We won!" And then he falls over and drops dead because his heart exploded after running 26 miles. That is why today when you run 26 miles, it's called a marathon, which it's funny that we do that today when the first person that did it dropped dead. But this proved that the Persians could be defeated. And that is the most important thing about this battle is it proved the Persians could be defeated. All right, so if you're Persia, what do you think you want? Now you want revenge. And the next Persian monarch is a guy named Xerxes. This is what he actually looked like. This is what Xerxes looks like in the stupid movie 300. Sorry if you like the movie 300. It's stupid and historically not accurate and just very dumb. But this is what Xerxes would have actually looked like. Xerxes wants to go get revenge and beat up on Athens for defeating Persia in the Battle of Marathon. So since Persia is going to come back and fight Greece again, Athens is like, hey, Sparta, let's make an alliance together, and together we can defeat the Persians. And Sparta's like, all right, we'll go together on that. Well, they put Sparta obviously in charge of the military because if you know anything about Sparta, Sparta's insane with military. You started military training as a boy when you were 6 years old, and you stayed in the military until you were 60, if you lived that long. So their military was just, no one could beat them. They were so fabulous with hand-to-hand combat. Athens obviously builds the navy because that's what they are good at. And together with Sparta's military skills and Athens' navy, they defeat the Persians yet again. Okay, we'll skip that. Because they defeated the Persians again, they decided to keep their alliance and be an alliance of a military just in case Persia came back for a third time. And this little alliance is going to be called the Delian League because it takes place on the island of Delos. The problem with the Delian League and what you're answering in your notes is really Sparta is to thank for winning the Second Persian War, but Athens takes all the credit for the Second Persian War, and they put an Athenian, this guy right here, his name's Pericles, they put an Athenian in charge of the Delian League. So Sparta does not get the credit, nor do they get the cash. Oh, that's supposed to be cash. Nor do they get the cash that they should get from helping out with that war. So that makes Sparta and Athens very mad at each other, and it makes them enemies. Because once again, the Delian League was controlled by the Athenians and not the Spartans. And the Spartans are missing out on the glory and money that they should have gotten for helping with the Second Persian War. So because those two are mad at each other, civil war breaks out. And it's called the Peloponnesian War. It's called the Peloponnesian War because this is the Peloponnesian Peninsula, and Sparta and Athens are both located on the Peloponnesian Peninsula. So the two are going to be enemies now. Well, you move this in the way. In this corner, Athens has a protective wall around their city. Guess what their plan is? Their plan is to just stay behind that wall. And if you're Athens, that's really not a bad plan because you should never fight Sparta in hand-to-hand combat. They're going to whip your tail. So they put everyone behind these walls, and they let their navy, which Sparta cannot beat, bring them food and supplies through their port city. Okay? Sparta, who, even though they're amazing in the military, they're not that smart, because if you do nothing but learn how to fight from the age of 6 on and you don't learn how to read or write or study anything, you're not really that smart. Sparta just surrounds Athens for 26 years and hopes that they're going to come out of the wall. They don't really do anything to go after the navy, which would be the smart thing to do, but they just kind of stay outside the walls and hope that Athens comes out, which they don't. During the Peloponnesian War, most of the other Greek city-states take sides. They either support Sparta or they support Athens. And that's what that map is showing you. All right, during the second year of the war, plague breaks out in the city of Athens, and it was brought in through the port city. So one of the places that was providing them with food brings in a disease, a plague, much like we're experiencing now, only this one was far more deadly. And it spreads all throughout the city of Athens. Here's the problem. They can't leave their city. They can't get out past and go outside of the walls because the Spartans are there. And if they leave the walls, the Spartans are just going to kill them. So this plague kills a third of the people. That means, like, if you filled a room with people, every third person that you counted would die. So, like, 1, 2 dead, 1, 2 dead. Pericles dies because of this. And while this is happening, the war is still going on and lasts for another 25 years. So that really dampens Athens' plan to stay behind their wall. In 405 BC, Sparta defeats Athens' navy, and because of that, Athens has to surrender, and Sparta tears down their walls. The huge effect and why we talk about the Peloponnesian War is obviously showing you that the city-states lose cooperation with each other. And Sparta and Athens break apart the Greek world. If Persia would have been smart, this is when Persia should have swooped in and taken over Greece. But Persia was not paying attention. But somebody else was. And that is the power of Macedonia. Macedonia was a northern, very rural, here they are up here, not organized group of people. And they were kind of seen as like hillbillies by the Athenians. They did not think that they were anyone to be scared of. And they pay attention when the Greek world is torn apart because of the Peloponnesian War. And they see it as their opportunity to swoop in and take over. And that they do. A man named Philip II comes in, takes over Greece, unites all of the city-states, and puts himself in power over all of them. And he's in power for a few years until one of his old bodyguards assassinates him at his daughter's wedding, at the Philip II's wedding. And his son takes over. And his son is probably the one that you've heard of. And his son is Alexander the Great. And he will go and take over Persia. All right, and that will be the next lesson. During this time period, just a little fun fact piece of history for you. During the classical period is when Athens builds the famous temple of the Parthenon. The Parthenon today, this is what it looks like. It's still standing, which is amazing considering how old it is. This is what it would have looked like when it was originally built. And then if you ever visit Nashville, Tennessee, Nashville recreated one in their Millennium Park. So you can kind of get an idea or a feel for what the Parthenon would have been. This was a famous temple built to the namesake of Athens, which is the Greek goddess Athena. And there was a giant gold statue 40 feet high in here of Athena, but it was robbed and looted during one of the many wars that brought down Greece later on towards the end. But I wanted you to make sure that you knew the famous temple of the Parthenon, sitting high on the Acropolis in the city of Athens, one of the biggest tourist attractions in the entire world. All right, fill out your notes, share them with me. Good job.